A band of mounted soldiers and wagons traveled along a barren road. Above them, the sky was a hollow gray cover of clouds. The man leading their formation stopped them and said, "Hey, look," looking past the bend in the road. A dead tree loomed before them, and dead bodies hung with it, their flesh stripped away by the crows, leaving only their bones behind, and an infant on the ground below. He looked down with a hint of amusement and said, "Whoa, pretty grisly." He turned, his eyes fixed on the rear of the column, watching a woman scurry down out of a wagon. "Shisu, wait," he urged, but she ignored him. Shisu rushed towards the child and fell to her knees. "Ooh," she cried, cradling him in her arms. A soldier beside them looked to his captain. "Poor girl. She's been acting funny since her miscarriage 3 days ago," his voice muffled behind his steel full helm. "That would have been your kid, right, Gambino?" Their captain Gambino spat back at him. "How the hell should I know?" Gripping the reins to his mount hard, he looked again at the two on the ground. "Hey, Shisu, how long you gonna stay there like that?" Shisu gave no reply. Gambino's eyes narrowed and his mouth tightened. Frustrated, he rode to Shisu and grabbed her arm. Shisu shrieked, dropping the child. "Snap out of it, that kid's already dead," Gambino said, yanking her upright and dragging her away. But as they took formation to ride, one of the soldiers in the rear guard called out, "Hey, that kid's alive." Under the dead body of its mother, the baby made its birthing cries, cradled in a mire of blood and afterbirth. Shisu flew out of Gambino's grasp towards the boy. She bent down to gently pick him up and comfort him in her arms. Gambino watched her. "Hey," he stuttered, intending to say more. Instead, he stood by as Shisu took back her place on the wagon, with the child's body cupped against her breast. The soldier with the steel full helm asked, "You gonna allow that, Gambino?" trotting along behind. "Hell if I care. She can do what she wants," Gambino said, his patience growing weary. "I don't know about that," the full helm soldier warned. Another plated soldier agreed. "Yeah," he said with a deep nod of his head. "It's a bad omen, isn't it?" the full helm soldier asked. "Picking up a kid at a place like this?" Gambino laughed. "Ah, you guys scared?" giving them a mocking look. "Why, no." The full helm soldier gave up. "You've got to be kidding." "Sheesh," Gambino said. "It'll die anyway if we just leave him alone. Until then, let it be Shisu's little toy to console her." Gambino kicked his horse and shouted, "Let's get out of here and stop jabbering about this crap," leading his column back into formation. 3 years later, the baby born from his mother's corpse has grown to be a healthy and strong child. Standing inside a dim-lit medical tent, he can hear shouting. "Hold on, Shisu," an old nurse begged, sweat dripping down the wrinkles in her face. Turning to face the boy, she says, "Guts, get out of here. She's got the plague. If you get infected, it'll be the end of you too." Shisu wept bile and blood from her eyes, reaching a hand out calling her boy by his name. "Guts," she moaned. The nurse grew impatient. "Where's Gambino?" she asked. "He won't come," answered a younger, frightened nurse. "He's in the middle of a siege." "Shameful," the old nurse said, protested. "You'd think a man would be with his woman in her dying moments." She put her head down to look at Shisu and said, "Okay, let's stuff something between her teeth." The boy Guts made his way across the tent, pushing both nurses aside. Startled, the young nurse said, "Hey, what are you doing?" Guts ignored her and stepped closer. Shisu reached her hand towards her boy, moaning, "Guts, Guts." He took his own hands and wrapped them around hers and held them close as her light and love slowly faded. 3 years later, a battlefield. 2 large columns of infantry marched towards a castle siege, smoke rising in the distance where sections of wall collapsed. Armed with pikes and mail, the soldiers forced themselves up a rocky hillside. A line of heavy cannons towed by horse marched between them, and mounted knights with sword and shield guarded the flanks. The knights charged the defending fortifications. A long line of palisades, catapults, and crossbowmen held the outer gate. They wore a medley of tattered cloaks, worn plate and ripped leather, but their faces wore looks of focus, confidence, and determination. They sent a volley of bolts into the charging cavalry. Gambino stood among the crossbowmen on the front line. "Yo, Guts," he called out. "A spear. Gimme a spear." 6-year-old Guts knelt behind him on the front line. Wearing only a cloth tunic and a leather belt, he grasped for a nearby spear. He stared at it for a heartbeat, hesitating. "Come on!" Gambino panicked, stealing the spear from Guts's hand. "Don't just sit there.